Welcome, everybody, to the Choices, Changes show with Georgie, Dickins, and Tran. This is a dynamic podcast that explores the transformative power of personal and professional decisions. Join Georgie and I as we delve into stories of courage, resilience, and innovation, featuring thought-provoking discussions on navigating life's pivotal moments. Georgie, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I'm in New York this week. No one told me that it was cold here. I did not bring a coat. Schoolboy error. So yeah, it's great to be here, Kiet. Always enjoy our conversations.
No, this is great. Look, you figured we did it last time, so we figured how to do it this time. And we had some technical difficulties, right? That's the thing in life, is nothing's guaranteed, nothing's fixed. You just got to learn how to navigate as life comes and really revolves around you.
Do you know, someone, Brad Levy, who you and I know well, he introduced me to the AQ recently, which is our adaptability quotient. You know, we have IQ, we have EQ, which is our emotional intelligence. AQ, that adaptability. And, you know, we were speaking to the, you know, whether you're a leader, whether you're, well, it doesn't matter who you are. In today's world, that AQ, that ability to bounce back to center, because I think we can all agree there's so much noise in the world and we're going to be pulled and pushed. So it's, you know, how we, to you said the word resilient, how we stay resilient and how we adapt to the changing environment around us, because things are changing very fast at the moment.
It is. I mean, look, yesterday we had our tariff gift, and then, but you know, when you think about what's funny, you think about, like, you know, now people say, you know, the world's changing, and you know, we're at a pivotal moment. Yeah, 10 years ago, the world's changing. We're at a pivotal moment. 20 years ago, like every few years, we go through the same thing. The reality is, you know, as you and I talked about last time, the world's always changing.
Yeah.
Right. The question is how we adapt.
And I think it's the pace of change, because to your point, I look at my grandparents. They went from like the horse and cart to a car. You know, my parents, when they grew up, had a TV that had 4 channels and it was black and white TV. We didn't have a dishwasher. You know, there's so much, you know, there is so much devices. I didn't have a mobile phone until I think I was 22 or something. So you now didn't have the internet. You know, all my schoolwork was done, you know, researching in a library, like book by book. There was no ChatGPT to be like, you know, give me the top 10 tips on XYZ. And to your point, change is constant. I think for people, what I'm observing now, the piece that I think is causing, you know, sometimes the knots in the stomach, the sleepless nights, is the pace of change. And a client recently described it as in baseball terms. And he said, imagine you're in a baseball batting cage. And in normal times, and I don't know how we classify normal times, but in normal times where things are maybe just not going as fast as they are, those balls are coming at you and you have time and space to see the ball coming, to take your swing and to hit that ball. Now, he said, those balls are coming at you thick and fast from every different direction, and it's like the machine's broken. And you're trying to navigate in real time, which do I hit, which do I let go, you know, which do I allow to hit me? So I think it's the pace that people are having. You know, we're all trying to calibrate to that, and there are so many unknowns that are. Again, a client shared yesterday, said, I feel like, you know, you know, when you're a child, that magician's hat, where you're like, what are they going to pull out? It kind of feels a little bit like that at the moment.
Yeah, but I also think, though, you know, it's like you know, we know what food to put in, what food not to put in, and to your point, where, you know, we're getting much more information than we've ever had, but yet we let all this information go into us and not filter, right? Because if information was a food, you would say, you know what, this is the type of food I don't want. This type of food I want is what healthy food looks like, right? And I do think in the world we live in, we need to prioritize what we let in, right? The information we want to absorb, the information we don't want to absorb. And a lot of times we don't really put that filter because we've gotten so used to, you know, the way we were getting our news, our entertainment, whatever the case may be. And at times, at least to me, at times where I reflect, I shut out information because I'm like, you know, it just creates more noise.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. And even like really important, insightful information, we still need to have the capacity to be able to process it and take it in. I don't know what my snow globe is. I have a snow globe somewhere here, but if you think about a snow globe, and if you imagine in that snow globe every conversation, every item on your to-do list, every piece of news you're reading, if every snowflake is representative of something that you're consuming or something that you're dealing with in the midst of a snowstorm, and I think many of us can find ourselves in that proverbial snowstorm at the moment. It's very difficult to get clarity, but it's when you allow those flakes that to settle, that's when things become clearer. We can't always control, I think, the level of information that's coming at us. To your point, what's within our control? Our control is what are the filters we choose to put on that, and that's within our gift. Yet I don't think we often give thought to the opportunity cost of time and of mind share. There's an opportunity cost to everything we're consuming.
No, there is, and it's funny. One of the things we talked about is, I use the example of a mango tree, right? Like you try to plant a mango tree in New York and say, well, this mango seed is bad. It's not. You're not putting in the right environment. And in the old days, where you can control your physical environment, right? Today, you need to think about the physical and the digital environment, right?
Yeah,
You need to understand your environment, and the environment you put yourself in matters.
it does. And if you think, and I love the mango tree analogy, it's such an important one, because if we think about a plant, for it to flourish, it needs air, it needs water, it needs light, it needs the weeds to be stripped away. Otherwise, it might still grow, but will it reach the highest levels that it can reach? And that we're human beings, we're the same. Our environment is so important. Who we surround ourselves with matters. To your point, what we consume from a news information perspective, it matters. And I don't think I think it's important for all of us to think about, what is the environment we're creating? And some of that we can't control, but there are certain elements of our environment, who we spend time with. Do we spend time with the energy radiators, the people that bring us alive, bring out the very best in us? Or are we spending lots of time with energy vampires, the people that suck the blood and life out of us? So I think how we spend our time really is linked to what do we want to put in that environment.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard, right? People talk about like you're the average of the five closest friends of you surround yourself with, but you're like, well, how do I move away from these people, right? It doesn't make sense. Like, when do I make a decision where the environment I'm in is not the right environment? Like, that's always I guess the tricky dilemma, right? From that perspective.
My coach shared with me years ago, and it was something that was, you sometimes have light bulb moments where you're like, wow, like it's just a single sentence really can shift everything. And he said, friends are there for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I was like, wow, so I don't, friends don't have to be with you forever. And because I want to keep in touch with everyone. And you know what, you have a family, you have less time because there's time spent with children, which, with children and husbands, and not husbands, husband, not going plural there. And it was really interesting because sometimes, I think friends are there for a season. It might be when you're at school, it might be for a woman when you're going on maternity leave, you've got your, antenatal group, and it might be your first job, when you're a grad, that's a tribe of people who you had the most incredible experience with. You were all experiencing some really pivotal life moments at the same time, but it doesn't mean you have to continue to be friends forever. So that quote, friends are there for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, I'm like, you know what, that's okay. It felt quite liberating hearing that.
Yeah, and also, hey, you may have friends that are great to hang out with and for entertainment, and you may have friends that are great for professional, whatever the case is, right? And to me, it's really about understanding what each relationship brings to the table,
Yeah.
and it's really about being able to have the understanding of I told you about how I have my calendar set, right? This is for learning and growing, this is for family, this is for relationships, etc. And it's really about being deliberate, understanding, okay, these are friends, they're still friends. It's for my entertainment time where I go and hang out and do my stuff. But then these are my circle of influence. You call it your board of directors
Yeah.
that can really help me elevate on the direction I want to take my professional career or my life, what have you.
That advisory board you mentioned is so important. If we think of any listed company, they have a board of directors, because that board of directors is there to give advice, is there to give insight, is there to provide oversight. And as human beings, you're the CEO of Kiet Tran LLC. I'm the CEO of Georgie Dickins LLC. And we are the CEO of our lives and our careers. And we're not meant to traverse life, our careers on our own. And that's where that advisory board comes in. And, it may be a mentor, a sponsor, a coach, a friend, but there are different hats they can wear. Is it the thinking partner? Is it the sounding board? You know what? I've had a really shit day. I just need to let off steam. Don't need you to say anything. Just need you to listen so I can vent. Is it the mirror? The person who can help you see things that you might be missing in yourself? Is it the checks and balance? Is it the accountability partner? And I think that advisory board, when I look at really inspiring and extraordinary leaders, whether they refer to it as their advisory board, I'm not sure, but they certainly have a trusted tribe around themselves that they invest in, and they will go to those people when they need advice, support, or input in some way.
No, I totally agree. Actually, one point you raised was interesting. We kind of touched on this, right? Like, we are our respective CEOs of our lives. And when we show up to our professional work, you know, we should think about our boss as not our boss, but our boss as our client,
Yeah.
right? We are the CEO of a company and we're servicing our client. And the reality is understanding the outcome we want for our client and understanding what we get for providing that service to our client. And I do think, there's this term coined, there's entrepreneurship and there's intrapreneurship, right? And a lot of times we think, hey, just because I'm working for someone, that there's no opportunity. Look, Steve Ballmer is worth $100+ billion, and he was an employee, right?
Yeah.
So I believe in entrepreneurship, and it's really about wearing that mindset of saying, I am the CEO of my own life, and that this is not my boss, but this is my business partner, and this is my client, right? I'm here to service my client. And I think that mindset shift made a huge difference, at least in my career. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I love the way that you've framed that, because I think it's when you frame it as a client, there's like a partnership piece there. And the word I wrote down as I was hearing you is that often people can focus on performance currency. We can focus on KPIs, objectives, and that's really important because you've got to, it's important to deliver. And it's that relationship currency too. What are the network nodes that are really important for me? Who are the people that can influence my career? Who are which are the relationships that are important for me to invest in? And then it's the how you do that. And I love what you said about, because when you think about the person, the individual as a client, like, how can I be in service? It's not then thinking, well, this is everything I need to tell them about me, but it's like, because if you're in service of them, ultimately those relationships often cultivate very well, because you're kind of in the giving mode.
No, it's that's exactly it. It was funny, market was founded on the give get rule, right? And that's always a philosophy I apply in my personal life is just give first, right? Don't
Yeah.
don't ask for anything back, because the more you give, I do believe in karma, right? I do believe a world where the more you give, just naturally, being selfless is being selfish. Like it's a philosophy that I apply, and it's actually, at least for me, it worked quite well, right, with that mindset.
I love the give to get. And I think it's not being attached to outcomes. I think, and look, we're human beings. We are. And someone the other day just said, human beings are jellyfish because they're so transparent. And I was like, that's so true. Human beings are like jellyfish because we can tell if there's an incongruency with, hey, Kit, I'm here to really help you and support you, where I'm really here just to serve myself. We can tell when there's an incongruency between what someone says and actually how they really show up, difference between words and actions. And I think we are in the business of people. And when you look at very meaningful relationships, I would say underpinning many of those is trust. And trust comes from rapport, trust comes from consistency, trust comes from delivering on your promises, trust comes from, being in service. So I love that being in service piece. And I'm not sure we all do we take time to put ourselves into the shoes of others? It's, we can sometimes, we're so busy in that workhorse mode. We're like, we need to get, we just want to put stuff out there. But it's what do they care about, what matters to them. And you said about karma. I believe in the law of attraction. I mean, I strongly believe in that, and it's one of Newton's laws as well. What we put out in the world comes back. If we put out good things come back to us, and it might not be in the way we imagined, which is why I think don't get attached to, too attached to the outcome. But the universe has a way of you put good stuff out in the world, you put good attitude, you come with a how can I help attitude. People will then want to help you. It's the way the universe works.
Well, it's funny is how we end up doing the show together, right? It was really about, we got connected by a mutual friend, and we trying to help each other and have conversation. Like, wait, this is great. This is great karma, right? How can we do something together? And then, lo and behold, the choices, chances, changes show started.
Yeah, and it's when we were looking at the we landed on the C's, didn't we? Choices, chances, changes, and the other words that come up for me about creation, like create and courage as well, because I think in the world today, we speak about there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of unknowns, and I think it can feel really uncomfortable, and sometimes it is taking on a new challenge, putting yourself out there, making your aspirations known, because the world is shifting, and it's, you may think about wanting to shift and doing something differently, and that courage, I think, is so important. And when I look at a lot of the clients I work with, a theme that's certainly come up before is that people wait to feel confident before they take a courageous step. But actually, confidence comes from taking that courage. So it's that reverse that is true.
No, it is. No, I learned this from a mentor in the past. Rarely right, always confident.
Rarely right, always confident. I love that.
And a lot, look, we talked about like being comfortable on being uncomfortable, right? A lot of it is us having that willingness to grow, and growing is not comfortable, right? Growing at times, you're doing things you've never done, and it's fearful. And so courage is doing it despite the fear, and that's how you grow. Is even though I'm fearful, it's funny. We talked about like speaking on stage, right? And you and I talked about last time. Like, I'm a natural introvert. I'm not a people person. People like, okay, there's no way you're an introvert. No way, right? But I am. I was born an introvert, right? But I spent a lot of years in practicing and training and having the courage to now, I could be on the stage, 10,000 people and speak and not have an issue. But am I scared what I'm doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I have butterflies in my stomach while I'm doing? Yeah, of course. It's natural. It's a human thing. But the difference is I'm willing to do it despite the fear. Right? That's courage. And I do think the more we do it, the better we get at our craft. Right. And that's really what drives confidence. I think confidence is learning from failure and understand that failure is first attempt in learning.
Mhm.
That's what it is, right? And I think it's a mindset shift that people need to carry from that perspective.
Yeah, I agree. And I love the first attempt in learning. And we often want to, when I say we often, I'm speaking very generally there. When we in the discomfort, I look back in my not even my just career, but my life, when I was training for a marathon, when I did a skydive. Was I scared? Like hell yeah, really scared. I put myself into discomfort, and the excitement, the exhilaration, you find out who you can become, and the untapped in a career is that untapped potential when you put yourself into that zone of discomfort. And my coach once said to me, and it's stretching, not straining. Stretching is learning and growing, and you want to push the boundaries. You want to be boundless. Straining is when you're kind of going against the tide. So it's just feeling into that when you're going into, moments of change. You don't want to strain, but it is stretching. It's pulling things out, and I look at my children when it comes to comfort and discomfort, and it's interesting. My children, same parents, they have a same upbringing. My youngest son puts himself out there, like he wants to learn and grow, and whereas my younger son is more like, you know what, I'll just put my toe in, and maybe that comes with time. But it's so I think sometimes there's like a DNA element. But to your point, it's about activating it. You said I didn't like, I was, introvert, didn't really enjoy speaking on stage, but the more you activate that muscle and flex it, it's within you. It's just so you're not shying away from it. I think sometimes people shy away from fear, but it's embrace it, lean into it.
No, I totally agree. And it also depends on the environment you're in, right? Like your kids are lucky because they have amazing parents that can help guide them. The question I'm always curious is, how do you know that you're not in the right environment, and how do you make a decision saying let's change the environment? Look, I was at IHS Markit for 17 years. That's a long, long time, right? And people always ask, well, why do you change? Right? You keep talking about changing. Why aren't you changing? I'm curious to hear your thoughts before I dive into why I was there for 17 years.
Yeah, I to your point, the environment is critical, and I think there's I think your intuition is really important. Is your internal GPS, and I think pay attention to that, because your internal, your intuition will tell you whether you feel alive, whether you feel excited. You'll know when you wake up in the morning, am I really excited to go to work, or am I wanting to hit snooze again and again? So I think it's paying attention to your intuition. I think it's also recognizing in times of change, the environment sometimes takes time to evolve. So it's not making any rash decisions. I think it's what am I noticing? Does this feel like this is if you're not finding yourself in the right environment, do you think that environment's going to endure, or actually is there change on the horizon? Because what you can sometimes see is people make these knee-jerk reactions. There's a management change within an organization, and different environment, might be different, different leadership style, and sometimes people can be very, very reactive, rather than actually let's just take time just to see how this unfolds. So I think, to answer your question, I think pay attention to your own guidance, because that's going to give you a sense of, do I feel this is the environment that really, where I can thrive, where I can be the best version of me. And equally, just know that, as we said, change is constant. So the environment you're in, it doesn't mean it might be evolving in your organization. So there's I think just tune into how you think it's evolving.
No, that's really great advice, right? And that's essentially, for me, was what is my story, and do I still have a story here? Right? I was there for 17 years. I have 14 different roles. And for me, it was, I want to be able to work for a startup, which I did, right? We were a 40-person firm when I joined. I want to be able to build products. I had the chance to build so many products while I was there. I want to be able to run a big business. Yeah, I had so many chances of running businesses and turn around businesses. And then I want to be able to run a region. So I did all four, right, throughout that 17 years. And then that's when I asked myself, okay, what is next? Well, I've checked all the boxes. The next thing I wanted to do was to start a company from 0 to 40 people. And so that's, for me to do that, I had to leave and really start this entrepreneur journey that I'm on. And so to your point, it's really about, understanding the clarity of what you're trying to achieve, and making sure that the environment is aligned or not. And a lot of times I see people staying longer than they need, but I also see people just leaving because of short-termism, right? Hey, I'm going to get a 10% raise somewhere else. And that's very short-term thinking, right? It's really about, what are the skill sets I want to learn, what are the capabilities I want to build upon, and what are the things I want to achieve, right, within the environment I am. And if the opportunity is still there, then continue that path, right? At least that's my personal view from that perspective.
Yeah, and the word that comes up for me is culture, because you can leave for the 10% rise, and maybe that's that's the right decision for you, but it's about being very, very intentional and deliberate with that. But you could leave for a 10% rise and the culture is not attuned, aligned with your values. So I think often, and I keep saying often, and I'm generalizing, but what I see these general patterns is that people can move to new roles because it's the status, it's the title, it's the comp package, which again, they're really important factors and but culture, the environment, the culture. Is this an organization where I can come alive? Is this an organization where I'm going to thrive? Knowing what's important to you. Is it autonomy? Is it decision making? Is it like what's important to you? And does the culture, is that an enabler to offer me the opportunities that I need? Because it's, when I was listening to you as you were talking about the 17, was it the 14 roles in 17 years or the other way around? 14.
14 roles in 17 years. That's right.
The word that really struck me listening to you is you're intentional. I wanna build products. I wanna, run regions. You were really intentional. And we said at the beginning, being the CEO of your career, you can wait for your boss to say, do you know what, Kiet? I think I want to kind of parachute you in here because I think you'd be brilliant. And that's also incredible because sometimes the people above us can see our unrealized potential that we can't yet see in ourselves. So there's a real benefit when people really, those above us, can really that put us into that uncomfortable zone because they see that we can grow and wrap our arms around the opportunity. And I think it's also being really thoughtful around, what do I want to do? What does success mean to me? What are the things that I want to be celebrating, and making decisions and in service of that.
No, you're totally right on, and I would flip the thought process as well, where for people that are leading teams or leading especially senior people, right, is to have that perspective because at times, look, early on when I start leading people, I always thought money was the answer, and it's interesting where the ones I give the biggest raise or bonus to are the unhappiest,
Mm,
right, and it's always strange, and so there are multiple dynamics in an individual, right? Money is not always the single. Don't get me wrong, money is important, but it's not the single driver, right? It's all the other perspective. And so understanding the teams you have and the people you have around you that you're leading matters. And it's also about the stage of leadership you're at, right? You could be a manager of a manager, or you can be a manager of a manager of a manager. Or for me it was my thought process, and I had to up my game when I started managing teams of MDs
yeah.
because these are very senior people, and so they need to come to me, right? I end up becoming the coach of CEOs, and so the mindset I carry, right, and the way I led was very different. And I do think if you flip the mindset, right, having that skills is going to be important because if you want to be your own CEO, if you want to lead large teams, you need to come from that mentality, right?
And you said the word motivations there, and that there's kind of two aspects to that because I talk about, all good leadership starts with self leadership. So there's it's about self awareness, self insight, knowing yourself. What are my motivations? What are my drivers? And they change over time. When I started out in my career, it was about earning money. It was about title because earning money was about saving money to buy a house, saving money to get married. Title was validation of like, what, Georgie's doing a great job, and she's, that's that recognition. And I think over time, our motivations and drivers change. That we don't always ask ourselves, what do I care about? What matters to me? What are my driving forces? And because then if we've got that level of self-insight, when we start to change the questions we ask ourselves, we start to change our experience of life. Because if we're using that information wisely, it's informing our choices. And equally, you said, you were running a team of MDs. I think as leaders, it's also recognizing people have different motivations and drivers. And you sometimes see leaders who think it is just about, if someone's unhappy, I'll pay them more and they'll be fine. Well, maybe money isn't their main motivation. Maybe they want to have exposure to a different part of the business. Maybe they want to take on a global mandate. Maybe that for them is what they're seeking. It isn't just give me more money and suddenly I'm now really happy. And so for leaders, it's self-awareness about ourselves, but equally being really attuned, different strokes for different folks. Not everyone it can be motivated in the same way.
No, it can be, and a lot of it is to what you're saying is alignment, right? How do you find the right alignment? And what's interesting is people always think leadership is about having direct reports. It's not.
Mm.
Leadership is leadership. And this is interesting. When I moved to Asia, I had the title head of APAC, right? But I took a different approach. I asked that I had no direct reports.
Okay.
And so I ran a region. I was meant to help grow the business, build up the region, but I had no direct reports. To me, that was great because I had to do admin work, I needed to do quarterly review, etc. But I had to lead and provide guidance and get the alignment. And to be honest, it made my life a lot easier from that perspective, right? We were able to achieve massive growth because we align everyone to the right incentive. And I think that alignment is so important that we underestimate. And we always think alignment is direct reporting line. It's not, right? It's not about reporting line. It's not about how many people you have working for you directly. That's not leadership. Leadership is leadership. Leadership's a vision, a message. Leadership is, I use the example of dragon boat racing, right? In the dragon boat race, like you have, I think it's nine person on each side, and then you have the person you're beating the drum, and the person in the front setting directions. The person beating the drum does one of three things, right? One is setting the tone and the harmony. Second is understanding if someone's moving the boat or moving the water, right?
Yes.
And third is understanding, is that individual in the best position to thrive, right? And in a way, you can help provide those guidance and partnership without having direct reports.
Mm.
And the test I took, which was I don't want any direct reports. I want to move to Asia. Right? Adam Kanzer was my boss. Like, you crazy? I'm like, I think this is gonna work, and it worked because leadership is not about reporting line. And I think people get that very confused sometimes.
Yeah, for me, leadership also is about really powerfully speaking to the why. You talk about strategy, because when people, Simon Sinek did a great talk on why. Leaders typically can focus on the what and the how, but the why, like, why are we doing this? Why does it matter? Why are we creating what we're creating? Because when people are enrolled in the why, they understand how their role, their responsibilities fit into the overall strategy. And I don't know whether there's a positive time and people go through, they go straight to the what and the how, but it's really missing a powerful opportunity to enroll people, to take people on the journey, for people to be, feel part of something important. So I think that for me, leadership is about the why, and anyone in an organization, from the executive team to the senior leadership team to the graduates coming in, should be able, not should, it's important that everyone can be able to speak to the mission. And it's interesting if you were to canvass many organizations, how many, what percentage of people in the organization could speak to the overall company strategy?
No, that's exactly it. It was funny. I was on the MD promotions committee for 5 straight years. On average, people are 3 years. I don't know why they wanted me on for that long, but I see a lot of the struggles where not understanding the why, to your point, right? Not understanding from your team, from your business, and how that connects to the overall firm's vision and what we're trying to do. That's actually the biggest hurdle people making the MD is not having that viewpoint, and also at times having a blind spot of not understanding who they are or what they're skilled at, right?
Yes.
I've seen people say, "Hey, these three people are supporters of me," and when you talk to these three people, like, no, they're not supporters of you, right? And not having that point of clarity is that understanding is what really holds people back.
It's interesting there. Blind spots are called blind for a reason. I once had a leader I worked with, and we're about to do his 360, and he said, "I don't have any blind spots," and I had to gently kind of remind him, well, yeah, blind spots are called blind because there are things that are just not that are not that you're not aware of. And when you said there about there's a mismatch between what people think how others would speak to them versus how they actually do, it made me think of Michael Jordan in The Last Dance, the show where I think it's Chicago Bulls? Is that
Chicago Bulls, yeah, that's right.
Chicago Bulls, where his teammates were interviewed, and they were like, tell us about Michael Jordan, what was he like as a leader? And people were like, he was a tyrant. Like, he was a bully, he was aggressive, he was hard. like really, like, you know, when you, those words again, I mean, maybe there's a positive, you know, and partly, you know, you've got to push people hard, but being called a tyrant, a bully, they're not words you'd want attributed to you. And when they shared shared it with Michael, you could see he was visibly taken aback, because he said, I never wanted, I wanted everyone to be a championship winner. I never asked them to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And you know, demonstrates the mismatch. He came from a place of intent. You know, I think I think everyone knows my why. I think everyone knows, you know, understands that I'm being really purposeful here because I want you all to win and succeed. And people can only judge you on the impact that you have on them. And this is why, you know, it's about soliciting feedback. I think often we can be in a vacuum, we make assumptions. We should all be, all of us, you know, periodically, not waiting for annual reviews but incrementally through the year, getting a sense of what is the perception of me? You know, what's it like to be around me on a good day? What's it like to be around me on a bad day? You know, what is the impact that I'm having in this organization? Because when we live in the world of assumptions, you know, sometimes they could be spot on, but other times you can find there's this grand canyon void between what we think people think about us and what they actually do, good and bad.
No, exactly it. But you raise a good point. That is, you know, it's funny. One of the terms we use a lot is assume positive intent.
Mm.
Right? I think that matters. You know, I've seen a lot of situations where I see two MDs and I see greatness in them, but yet somehow they don't like each other. Right?
Yeah.
Somehow there's something wrong. But I'm like, I see where this person is coming from. I see where this person is coming from, and it's their individual point of view. It's just like politics, right? Everyone have their own political view, but that doesn't make them evil. It doesn't mean that they come from that perspective because they have a negative intent, right? Everyone has an assumed positive intent. Everyone wants the right thing. Everyone wants to do good, do well, but everyone have their own view of what that means and how to get there. And so unless we carry that assumed positive intent, right, we'll always have this mindset: this individual is out to get me. No one's out to get you.
Yeah.
Honestly, no one's out. People are busy with their own lives. No one's out to get you, right? So I think carrying that assumed positive intent, you know, to the
Yes.
point you're raising, it's so critical, right? And also getting that clarity as well on at times like, well, I didn't mean to say that,
Yeah.
but you didn't, but it came across that way. So you got to be mindful about it as well, right?
Yeah, I always speak to clients, okay, it's moving from certainty to curiosity. Let's say, you know, you've haven't put me on an email, and you know, let's say we're both working together, you haven't included me on an email. My assumption can be like, well, again, I will not speak out loud, but my assumption might be like, what a insert word. You know, they have not included me. They're clearly trying to, you know, disclude me from the conversation. You know, we can move into assumptions and stories. Maybe that is completely spot on, but what is the evidence to support or refute that? Or we can move to a place of curiosity. What might be, you know, what is, you know, first of all, have the conversation, but what might be the reason behind that? And with clients, I use a beach ball. And you know, the beach balls you have as a child, the, you know, the big blowy up ones that have all the, like, the orange segments, you know, green and red and yellow. And it's such a powerful metaphor, because if I was to hold the beach ball up now and like really close to me, and let's say that beach ball is that's the situation. You haven't included me on the email. So if I hold that beach ball up really close to me, and you said to me, Georgie, what's the color of your beach ball? I'm like, well, my beach ball is red and green. So I'm red and green. But if we said to you, Kit, and you've got the ball up against you, so like, what's the color of your beach ball? You'd be like, well, mine's yellow and blue, because it is yellow. When you're looking at it really close, yours is yellow and blue, mine's red and green, which is where that curiosity comes in. Because if we just take a step back and you come from that place of curiosity, walking round the beach ball, what am I not noticing? What might I be missing? And we can often go straight into pointing fingers. But curiosity for me is always, and look, some people are not good people. I always assume positive intent, and sometimes, I don't know, there's the odd outlier that it just isn't a good person. But on balance, to your point, people are not bad people. It's just we're caught up in the busyness of day, of the day in our lives, and sometimes we're not doing things in a Machiavellian way, and we're really unaware of what the experience of that, you know, of how we're showing up, how that's impacting others.
No, it is, and I guess sometimes it's unavoidable, right? And to your point, look, they could be ill-intentioned people around us. The the question is, I love the saying, when you hate somebody, or in general, it's like, drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, right? In that sense. And so in a lot of cases, it's really about, having the clarity, like in in how I operate my daily life. It's identifying what's urgent, what's important, and what's in my control, right? And I create these buckets, right? So if it's urgent and it's important, I got to do it now. I can't procrastinate, right? If it's urgent and not important, I'll delegate because it's not important, right? If it's not urgent, not important, forget about it.
Yeah.
But if it's not urgent but important, I need to plan it. That's why on my calendar I have things for health, right? Health is not important right now, but unless I'm maintaining and upkeeping, it will be an issue, for example. And then when I look at these situations, and then I ask the next question: can I control this or not? And it could be an annoying way to live life, but that's how I live life, right? And so for me, whatever situation is that situation. If that person or that individual decides to be evil or what have you, I need that individual out of my life.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? I move on with what I have around me, what I know is important, and I set the environment I want to set in, right? And it's so important to have an inventory of the environment you want to be in. Places, people, things, all that combined to allow you to grow and thrive, like the mango tree, right? We're all in the way, one way, shape, or form, a mango tree.
No, it's so true. A question for you, because when you talked about the, the urgent, important, and I love the, similar to the Eisenhower matrix. I love that discernment of, how you then approach tasks and what's important to you. One thing that keeps coming up for me with a number of my clients is how do you manage your inbox? You're in meetings, your email inbox. You're in meetings. You can come back after a 2-hour meeting and you've got like 200 emails. I'm still trying to work out what the holy grail is, because people are asking me for advice on this one, and I'm not an all-star player on this by any stretch. I'm very much work in progress. I'm wondering, as I was listening to you, if you have any tactics around how you approach your emails, so you very much are in control of your inbox and things don't get missed.
So for me, it's really about, so I set schedules on when to check my inbox.
Okay,
And
that's
it's interesting. Look, when I was running a big global team, right? If it's an email that's that important and need to get a hold of me, I'm sure they'll, in addition to emailing me, they'll text me or they'll try to call me. So is that important, right? You think sending an email is the way to solving any problem? It's not, right? So for me, it's about, setting the time of where I can set and have my undivided attention to the inbox. And from my perspective as well, is I categorize to that 4 category, right? To that bucket. Is it important? Is it urgent? And if it is important, it's urgent, I reply and I address it. But if it's important but not urgent, I'll put in a schedule. Let's have a team meeting in the next week, right? And everything else is everything else. Like a lot of times we get so bogged down with an inbox because our inbox is filled with a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And I actually have a lot of email addresses, right? I have an email address where all spams go to.
Okay.
And I have a personal email address where if you're sending me an email to that email, like you mean business. And so for me, it's about, okay, that's the spam box. I don't need to worry about it, right? This is a serious box. Okay, let's figure out what's important, what's urgent, and getting that clarity. We shouldn't let our inbox control us. We should let our priorities and understand what we deem as important, right, really set the tone.
Yeah, I agree there. I love what you shared there about and I think I do a kind of semi-average job of this, but it's that because I'll put time in. So here's the thing: I'll put time in my diary to check my inbox, but then I don't honor the time. So I'm like this. So there's the knowing and doing. I think that's with all life. I know I want to get fit and healthy. then I've got to do the work. I know I want to. So there's something there about the intentionality, and then you've got to do the work. It's not then there's no fortune cookie that's gonna, material, do the work for you.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think action matters, right? So it's also about, to me, is if you don't measure or you don't track or have the data, you can't improve.
Yeah.
And so it's really about creating a system for yourself. So in my early years, I was a stockbroker, insurance salesman, many years ago. And one of the tricks that I've learned from doing that, and I still today follow, was I create a point system for myself. So back then, my point system was how many cold calls I made in a day, how many meetings I've set, how many door to doors I knocked, etc. And I create a point system. And in a blend, if that point system add up to 10 points for that day, or 60 points for that week, I've done my job. And so I still do that. And it's funny, a lot of my people within my network, or a lot of my colleagues or friends, like, kid, how come I randomly get calls from you? Because every day I have a metric. I need to call 3 random people I don't typically talk to, right? And reach out and connect. And so for me, I create this point system.
I love that.
And I'm not going to be perfect, but as long as I reach these set of points, I know directionally I'm heading the right zip code, right? And I do think things like inbox. Look, if something that is that important, you're going to get multiple emails, or someone will try to call you or text you or find other avenues to reach you, right? But if they think, hey, email is the only way to reach you, then maybe it's not that important.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's also setting expectations, isn't it? I think people, it's very easy to include people on emails, more thoughtful in terms of who needs to really be on it, because, we could just add people. And so I think it's also, where you can, and it's not always within everyone's control, but where you can, if you're a leader, when you're empowering others, these are the things that, that keep me involved in. These are the things you don't need to keep me involved in. So I think there's an expectation piece there as well, because it's the time piece. There's an opportunity cost of time. Even quickly glancing through headlines and type, there's an opportunity cost of time. So you said a minute ago, and I think it's really important, creating systems for yourself. And I love what you said about measuring. My challenge when I come to measure is I set my standards too high, which is it sounds, I'll be like, well, I want to get 20 points every day. And so it's finding, I think, something that's it's stretching, but realistic. So you can achieve the goals that you set yourself.
No, that's right. And it's really about setting the minimum bar, right? Because look, the reality is you are what you tolerate.
Yes.
Right. And so it's whatever standard you want to set yourself, and whatever you are willing to tolerate or not willing to tolerate. And to me, it's always about setting that standard. For me, it's like, if it's below 10 point, I'm not going to tolerate it. Right. So what is my threshold on what I tolerate, what I don't tolerate? We always go like complain about these things in our life and whatever the case is. Well, we're to be blamed because we're tolerating it, and we're not setting the standard or the guidelines. So it's funny. I was coaching a group of women MDs at Market, and I told them about boundaries and guidelines, and you said, what you tolerate? They're surprised to hear from me. I'm like, yeah. It was funny. So I had this salesperson that emailed me on a weekend about a particular deal, whatever the case is. In their mind, it was going sideways, and I didn't look at my email on the weekend. What's the point, right? And so I checked my email Monday, and then on Monday, this person called me frantically, said, "Kid, how come you didn't reply to me over the weekend?" I'm like, first of all, had I replied to you over the weekend, what has changed? Well, you've ruined my weekend, right? You've ruined your own weekend. And second, you even said the client's away until Tuesday. So what's the point? And I said, if it's that urgent, you have my phone number. You could have called me. You could have texted me, right? And I set boundaries on what I tolerate. And look, when I ran Asia, my first phone call was 7 a.m. And I would usually take calls till like 11, 12 p.m. at night. But from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at night, you cannot reach me because I'm having dinner with my family. right? I'm not going to tolerate getting disturbed with having dinner with my family. And it's we all what we tolerate. We need to set those tones.
Yeah.
And at times, we don't set those tones. And so we see these things happening. We're like, wait, this is a disaster. No, it's not a disaster, right? It's up to you to set that tone. It's up to you to say, this is what I'm going to tolerate. This is what I'm not going to tolerate.
Yeah, it's the boundaries piece. I think it's and it's what's within your control. And I think sometimes, I look at myself and I can put boundaries in place, but then I don't honor them, which comes at, it's about being, protecting those boundaries and not letting people or devices steal that time for you if it's important to you.
No, it is. And what I love about life is, I've seen so many stories of people that's got a, not a great life, but they've gone to a point where they say, enough is enough. I got to do something different. I got to change. And it's that moment of drive to say, okay, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to take action. And all of a sudden they turn around, their life is amazing, right? I got friends that didn't graduate from high school. And I've been trying to advise them to look, life's going to be, you got to think about your path. And whatever it was, it just triggered our mindset. And now this person is very successful, right? Because they're like, I'm enough is enough. I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. And here are things I'm going to do. And to me, everyone and anyone has that superpower. It's really a matter of them understanding what enough is to drive the choices that they make, the chances going to take, and the changes they're willing to adopt in their life, right? And a lot of it is, to your point, is taking actions. Like actions are more powerful than anything else. And it's not about planning for the action, right? Like if we were planning for the action, this podcast we're doing now would have taken ages to happen. We just did it.
Yeah, it's because then you get data, don't you, in terms of what's working, what's not working, where do we need to course correct, what do we need to do differently, what do we need to adjust? And it is taking action. And I think not being reckless. I remember one client said to me, like, I do take a lot of risk, but I'm not reckless. It's that calculated risk. But it's when you take the next step often reveals itself, because you're like, okay, I've got more insight now, so that's going to inform the next step that I take. But to your point, where you said about choices, chances, and changes, what underpinning that for me is self-leadership, which I referenced earlier. It really is a superpower. And self-leadership, it requires, it's that level of self-awareness, self-insight, the questions we ask ourselves, the boundaries we put in place to protect our time, like that. Self-leadership is a superpower, and yet it's not always activated, because it requires us to really, you and I said in a call recently, we're talking about being the pilot of our lives, not the passenger. We want to be the pilot. You get to choose to be the pilot of your life, but you got to take the action. You can't just wait for life to happen for you. You've got to make it happen, to you.
No, exactly. It's funny. We almost call this show the leadership of me, right? To the
Yeah.
point of being the pilot of your life, and to the point you're making, we need to think that and realize that we're the CEO of our own life, and there's no one to blame unless you take ownership of everything that collectively that you've done in the past to get where you are now. It's all you.
Yeah.
Right? Look, is there luck in life? Of course there's luck in life. Right? If you don't think there's luck in life, you're sleeping under a rock. There's always luck in life. But the harder you work, the better you position yourself in the right environment, the luckier you get.
Yeah.
And at times you just gotta take ownership on the bad luck. And it's really about, what are you doing that's working, that's not working. Treat yourself like a startup, right? Go out, take those tests, and find your own personal product market fit and what that means.
I love that. And many of the leaders I work with attribute luck to, they attribute, a good dollop of luck to their success. But genuinely, I look at what they've done and how they've done it. I'm like, there's a great saying about, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And another leader said, when there's a lot of bad luck, things going against you, it's very difficult to have a victory. And I both are true. But when people often look at I'm using a lot of general words here, often and sometimes, but again, people can look at leaders who've created great things and be like, do you know what, they've been really lucky. But they see the icebergs, they see the 1/7 that's submerged, that's visible, the accolades, the successes, the market cap of their company, the number of people in their organization. They don't see the 6/7, the sleepless nights, the setbacks, the challenges, the second guessing themselves. Like, no one sees that piece unless they kind of get to go behind the curtain. So I think, yes, people can attribute luck, and there's a lot that goes on behind the surface, whether it's an artist, an athlete, a scholar, an entrepreneur. There's a lot that goes on that people don't see.
There's definitely more to uncover on that topic. Well, Georgie, that was a great session we just did. Any last words to the audience?
I think I'm gonna share an invitation, and I think the invitation is, we've talked about self-leadership as a superpower. The invitation is to really hold the mirror up to yourself, to see yourself, and not see yourself and be like, for me, it's like, I've got a few grey hairs, I've got some trench lines on my forehead, but who am I? What do I care about? What matters to me? What is the success I desire, and how can I be the conscious creator of that?
That's beautiful. Thank you, Georgie. Thank you for everyone continue to listen and support us. As Georgie mentioned last time, if you have ideas, topics you want us to discuss, please feel free to send to us. Or if you have a guest that you think, hey, this would be a great guest for your show, you should talk to that individual. Please let us know. Thank you, everyone, and have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.